For the average fan of the 4-player co-op heisting experience, it has been a turbulent 12 months, to say the least. And I don't need to go into much detail as to why Payday 3 is the cause of that, no more so than the average video game reviewer needs to mention Sonic the Hedgehog's 3D gaming history every time a new 3D game comes out. Please stop it, it's getting very boring. But it does play into the overall theme of today's video, because it's certainly not a video I ever expected to make, but it's one that I'm really enjoying putting together all the same. Crime Boss Rockay City first launched exclusively to PC a little over a year ago, back in March of 2023. And when the game was first revealed to gamers around the world, I think everyone who played Payday looked at it and thought, huh, see what you're trying to do there? It's not going to work. Because all you could see from the initial Game Awards trailer was it was this big bucket of celebrity cameos stuffed into a neon 90s setting and providing this co-op heisty experience along the way. The only thing Payday players could latch onto was the existence of Damien Poitier in this universe, who plays the voice of Chains in Payday 2 and 3, as well as his face in Payday 2 and previous live-action appearances. Beyond that, you had a whole range of celebrity names from Michael Madsen and Michael Rooker to Kim Basinger and Vanilla Ice, of all people. And when it finally released to the public, it gained a bit of a decent reception from heisting fans, but mainly because of its meme potential, mostly centered around the character of Travis Baker, played by Michael Madsen.
Man, I miss the old games. Right?
Well, new adventures await, buddy.
And in the last 12 months, I've not really heard many people talk about it. When I reviewed the best and worst games of 2023 on my second channel, I talked about how Crime Boss was one of those games that I played for a couple of weeks and then kind of put aside. There wasn't really any longevity to it. There wasn't anything to bring me back into the game and make me go, do you know what? I can't wait to try Crime Boss again. So why am I making this video? Well, it's changed. It's changed quite dramatically, because Crime Boss Rockay City recently released Update 8 a couple of weeks ago, which added a well-developed and very well-executed progression system, something that certain heisting games really need to get into grips at this point, and it has genuinely revitalized my love of the game. I can't even begin to express how much better it's made Crime Boss as an overall experience. So what I'm going to do in this video today is talk to you about what's made Crime Boss Rockay City so good, both explaining it for people who've never heard of it and think I'm talking out my backside, and for people who may have fallen off with the game and think that I'm talking crazy for ever giving more attention to this game, because genuinely, I think it's a really fun time, and as my thumbnail has said and my title for this video, I think right now it is a better heisting experience than what we have with Payday 3. Because when you stack up the positives and negatives that this game has, something I will do in this 12 months on style review, you'll see there's a lot to love about this game. Whether you're a returning player or someone looking for a new heisting experience, this is something that's certainly fun and feeling quite fresh. But speaking of fresh, this video is sponsored by HelloFresh. Whether you're trying to save money, eat better, or stress less, HelloFresh is here to help you do all three. There's a reason they're called America's #1 meal kit, because you can say hello to your most delicious year yet with fresh ingredients and chef-crafted recipes at a price you'll like, delivered right to your door. If you're like me and you're trying to count those calories at the minute and you spend a lot of your time staring blankly at the fridge with no clue what to make for dinner, you can give HelloFresh a try and choose from 30+ calorie smart or protein smart recipes each week. They're all packed with fresh ingredients and everything arrives pre-portioned right at your doorstep for less hassle and more enjoyment. And if that's not enough, when you try HelloFresh, you'll also unlock free dessert for life. So you can make restaurant quality meals at home, topped off with a decadent sweet treat. You get that free dessert with every box while your subscription is active, which means there's never been a better time than right now to sign up to HelloFresh. You can use the link in my description, use the code on screen, or scan the QR code to sign up to HelloFresh today. Thank you very much to the team for sponsoring this video. And with that being said, let's get back to the discussion about Crime Boss Rockay City. So let's get right into the nitty-gritty and explain what exactly this game is if you aren't too sure what's happening. It is, as I said, a 4-player co-op heisting experience. It's available on PC via the Epic Games Store, Xbox Series X and S, and PS5, but it is worth noting that a Steam release is coming for this game, and I believe it's currently earmarked for sometime in June. But it also does a little bit more than that. You see, Crime Boss has single-player and multiplayer options. The single-player is a roguelite story mode where you play as Michael Madsen's character, Travis Baker, trying to take control of 1990s Rockay City, a fictional setting in the state of Florida that's currently being fought over by a bunch of drug barons and criminal warlords. And if you're not sure what the term roguelite means, what it basically means is you're playing a full story, but if your main character dies, you lose your progress. But it's light rather than roguelike because you get extra perks that make it easier on repeat playthroughs. So you are doing the same thing over and over again, but it gets slightly easier and slightly more enjoyable, I would say, almost, as you complete these repeat runs. You complete the single player roguelite mode if you take control of all the turfs, basically wiping out your competition, assuming you don't get stopped in the meantime by the police who are slowly building up an investigation as you progress across these days in the campaign, led by none other than Sheriff Norris, played by Chuck Norris. I told you it was a bucket of celebrities. And this feels like the best point to mention that one of the biggest criticisms that Crime Boss got was its voice acting quality. Now, I'm personally not the biggest critic of it, only because I kind of have an attitude towards it that I do with the film Morbius, which I know sounds weird, but stay with me. It's one of those things where it's not necessarily good. You don't look at it and go, wow, this is really good stuff, but I get a lot of fun out of it.
Banks.
Yes, sir.
I fucking love Banks.
It's just this really campy, cheesy dialogue that for the most part, I think really lands. And even if the voice performances aren't amazing, I think some of them are really good. I love Damien Poitier, I've said that a million times before, and I think he does good in this game. I also think Michael Madsen's performance is pretty good. It gets some stick, but I think it works. I think the only one that really does let it down is Chuck Norris. I don't know what was going on there. Maybe it was a Ron Perlman situation with Payday where they just gave him a big bag of money and he kind of phoned it in. But Chuck Norris is definitely the worst out of the lot by a country mile.
Then we found a hidden vault, hyper modern and everything controlled by computers.
Computers, bah.
But all in all, it's a genuinely fun experience. It's really fun to get back into, and even when I stopped playing Crime Boss, I never really felt that negatively about that mode. I felt like it still worked and was fun to play through. But if you don't want to play the single player mode, that's totally fair. You also have a multiplayer. Both of these modes have offline options, so you can go into whatever you want, whether you're with friends online or playing offline on your console or your PC. Something else that another game really could do with doing very quickly. But the multiplayer is the biggest improvement since Update 8, because multiplayer originally was just called Crime Time. You could pick a job to play with friends, you'd play it through, and that'd be it. You get some money, but you didn't have much to spend it on. There wasn't really anything noticeable progression-wise, and that was what I thought was the biggest failure with Crime Boss. I played it with friends, but it always felt like we weren't really accomplishing much. There wasn't a point to doing it, and so you just played a few heists and went, that'll do. It's not got much life to it. I'll just move on. But since Update 8, that has all changed, and I will get into the progression in a minute because that's one of the biggest things. But multiplayer in general has had a pretty big overhaul, not just in how the jobs are organized, but it makes it clear that there are several different ways to play the game. And granted, some of this stuff has been in the game since launch or is added before Update 8, but it's presented in a much better package now that I think makes it easier to navigate through and easier for me to explain to you what's going on. You've got the single missions you can play through, which are organized much better now, from the big jobs like Dragon Dogs, stealing some golden statues, or finding a hidden vault in a bank, some of the lower type things like a jewelry store, bank heist, or some of the real ground level stuff like robbing a strip mall or a car dealership. You've got the shuffle option, which takes some of these jobs, it randomizes them on a certain difficulty and throws them at you one after the other, and you get extra rewards if you get through them all with high ratings. Or you've got Urban Legends, little 3-mission campaigns for different characters that allow you to explore a bit more of Crime Boss's story and setting, again with that challenge of trying to do them one after the other without failing. The trick with those is that the lives that you have persist through the levels, so if you die a lot early on, it'll make the later levels a lot harder. And of course, you've got your standard quick join option as well. You just get into something that's in progress and join in on the heisting. There's a lot of options, and I think they work really well. Shuffle in particular is one of my favorites, because sometimes, as I've said with Payday 2 in particular, when there's so many jobs on offer, it can be a bit overwhelming, and you can sit there and think, well, what am I supposed to do? What do I play? I kind of feel like I'm spoiled for choice, and that takes the agency out of it. It goes, right, forget you picking, here's some jobs, play them, have a good time, and it works really well. My litmus test for this is my Xbox friend group. I have a couple of friends that I play a lot of games with. We haven't played Payday 3 together for about 4 or 5 months, but we're having a lot of fun going back to Crime Boss day after day and playing more of these missions. And the progression system itself is what makes that so good. So the progression system, this is what I really want to wax lyrical over, it persists between single player and multiplayer. So it doesn't matter what you're playing, you're always progressing your overall level in the game. And the best part is, every time you level up, you get to choose from 3 different rewards, and most of them will apply to single player and multiplayer. Whether it's a certain heist character you can play as in multiplayer, who you can recruit as a crew member in single player, or a certain gun that will become available in both game modes. The only real exception are the weapon skins, which are exclusive to multiplayer, and fair enough. I mean, it would be nice to see those in single player, but they don't have to be there to make the game any better. The point is, most of what you unlock transfers across both modes, and I think that's a really, really good choice. It means that no matter what you fancy playing in the game, you're always progressing overall, and you always feel like you're not wasting your time, almost without even thinking about it, and that really takes some of the pressure and some of the forced nature of playing some of these games away from Crime Boss. The last big thing that I want to talk about before I get into some overall feedback on the good and bad of the game is the gameplay itself, because I feel like I need to discuss that. I think it's very important. The game does allow you to play in stealth and loud for nearly all of the missions. A couple of them will force you straight into loud, and also certain jobs will randomly start you in loud, especially in story mode. Occasionally you'll play a bank heist and it'll throw you straight into a loud version. I do think that could be a little bit better explained, or at least give you a warning sometimes. That's one criticism I would make, because sometimes you prepare for a stealth and suddenly you're in a loud heist and you feel a bit like a fish out of water, like a percentage. There's a 10% chance that when you start this, you'll be loud immediately and you just know the risk and you go for it. That could be cool. But the point is, most missions can be taken stealth or loud, and I think stealth is the biggest advantage this game has, because it doesn't have a pager system like Payday. Every guard on the map can be subdued and secured away from the area without any alarms going off, without there being an artificial cap, and without there being any kind of pressure as to who you need to deal with at any one time. The only thing you're limited by is your own skill and your own planning in the level. You have a 3-strike system, and if you destroy a camera, kill a guard, or kill a civilian, you will get a strike. There are other things like spotting body bags and things that count, but they're the 3 major things. So you want to make sure cameras don't see you. If they spot you, get out of sight, get under them, or smash them if you want to get a strike, whatever. But if a guard sees you or a civilian sees you, you have the option to subdue. Now, this has been much improved since the launch, because you can only really intimidate civilians at launch by making them all get on the ground by getting your gun out. Now you can walk up to any guard or civilian, and even with your gun away, because yes, you can always put your gun away no matter when you're playing, just hold the switch weapon button and you put it away. But you can walk up to someone in their face, give them a shove, and they'll immediately be subdued, and you can tie them up and move them around. That applies to guards as long as they've not detected you for longer than a second or so on the full detection level, or civilians. You can do it to any of them. You zip tie them up and you can move up to 3 of them around the map with no skill level requirements. And if you do that well with a lot of civvies or a lot of guards, you can get them all around in certain areas of the map out of the way and basically clear an entire building if you put the time and effort into it. And maybe this is a hot take, but I actually find that as a much more enjoyable stealth system. I will sing the praises of Payday 3 stealth. I do still think it's a fantastic improvement on Payday 2's, but there's something about the stealth in Crime Boss that just makes me keep coming back. There's something really fun about the challenge it presents that's more unique and yes, probably a little easier, but just very satisfying to do. You have a camera room to take down in most of these heists. If you can get past there without being spotted, it makes the job a lot easier. You've got tech like camera jammers that will block a camera for a short period of time, bricks that you can throw that will make a guard follow around an area, like tossing a coin in Hitman, and that's why I think the stealth is absolutely fantastic, and you'll have seen gameplay on the screen. I think it rocks. I really love it. Loud gameplay, there's not too much to say. It is your typical loud heisting experience. I don't think it's bad. I just don't really have much to sing praise-wise here. Some of the objectives require drills and saws, which have a specific boost mechanic on them, where if you hold the activation button on them for a certain period of time and land a dial in a green zone, it'll either double or triple the drill speed. If you go too far, it'll overheat and you have to restart it. If you don't go far enough, it'll tick back down and you get to try it again. It's a cool feature that I quite like, and I know it was actually theorized or discussed for Payday 3, but moved away from. I wouldn't hate Payday 3 getting it. I think it's an interesting trait that makes it a bit more engaging in your gameplay rather than waiting for a drill to pass for 5 minutes. At least you have a bit more agency in it. From there, you have your standard police assaults that then whittle down in gaps in between, but you also have different heat levels. So when you're playing on multiplayer, you have normal, hard, or extreme difficulty. That will change the level of the police response and also the amount of health you have. And then in single player mode, you have a level of heat each day. It's higher or lower depending on how high the investigation bar's got, so basically how close the cops are to chasing you down, as well as how many jobs you've done on that certain day. So if you have a really high heat level when you do a mission, it's much harder to deal with, and you will often lose runs if you're not careful with your loud loadout and with a good team. If it's low level heat, it's much easier to deal with. It's more standard affair. It's like playing normal or hard on the Payday 3 heist. As long as you're even a little bit experienced with the gameplay, it shouldn't prove a problem. And that's it for the main points of Crime Boss Rockay City. Now, let's run you through some other things that I think you need to know if you're considering picking this game up. First off, there is no skill system in the game that is super in-depth and lets you customize builds. What you instead have are perks. In single player, the more you play as a character in a particular campaign, the more you can level them up or promote them, I think to the maximum of 4. And as you promote them, they get extra perks or improve on those perks. They vary between playthroughs, but make the characters more unique with certain abilities. They mean you might want to bring them along for stealth as opposed to loud, or vice versa. Meanwhile, in multiplayer, you can pick a whole range of Crime Boss characters to play as who come with their own preset perks, or you can play as your boss, and the boss can take a range of skins, including Travis Baker or Touchdown, Michael Rooker's character, or a bunch of lower level characters that pop up in Crime Boss's story. You unlock those through progression and buying them with the money you get in multiplayer. But they can be given perks of your own choice. You're given a whole list of them. Unfortunately, right now they're all just level 1 perks, but the Crime Boss devs have confirmed that Update 9 coming next month, which hopefully I think will coincide with the release on Steam, will give you the ability to unlock high level perks through the progression system that make the boss even more customizable. So that will be a great update, and I'm looking forward to that coming out in June. As for the progression itself, it's important to note the max level is 111. According to people I've talked to in the Crime Boss Discord server, it gets more challenging around the 70 to 80 level. I'm personally about level 43 at the minute, and I got a head start of level 20 because if you'd played the game before this progression overhaul, they jumped the first 20 levels for you to give you a bit of a head start. So I've leveled up about 23 times from what must be about 20 to 30 hours of playtime now since this update's come out. So it's not a quick progression system, but I also don't feel like it's too slow. It feels just right. If it's going to get much harder as it goes on, maybe it'll be a little bit too much, but we'll see. It's a hard cap at level 111 right now. There's no prestige system. Hopefully one gets added and then you can just progress forever. And finally, the last information, positive-ish thing to note is the DLC. There's only been 3 DLC packs so far, to my knowledge, 2 weapon packs and 1 overall heist pack called Dragon's Gold Cup. Dragon's Gold Cup is £8. I haven't yet tried that out, so I will do it at some point soon. But both the weapon packs they've released so far had a period where you could get them for free and then have gone on to be charged. In fact, I think the second one might still be free at the moment, but don't quote me on that. That is a really good DLC system that I like, and on top of that, if you don't own the DLC Heist Pack, you can join it as long as a friend owns it, just like with Payday. So there's really no way to better improve that system. I think the pricing feels pretty decent. Once I try Dragon's Gold Cup, I'll know for sure, but it seems like there's several options in multiplayer, a unique story mode option in single player, so overall I think there's some decent stuff to be offered there, and hopefully it's worth the asking price. But finally, the last thing I want to note are a few issues with the game, just things I want to note for the devs who might be watching this video. First off, I don't think the performance is particularly amazing. I'm playing on the Xbox Series X. I haven't noticed much of a difference between performance and quality modes, so maybe this is on me, or maybe I'm just not trying out the settings enough. Normally performance modes, they do reduce graphic quality, but not to the level that I've seen. I'll have guards where if I'm stood about 10 meters away from them, their faces haven't loaded in, and they look like PS2 characters. Occasionally I've walked past walls where vents have popped in when they're at medium to short range distance, things like that. It doesn't happen so much that it annoys me, but it is something that I've noticed enough to make note of it here. But on top of that, there's also some desync issues. Crime Boss in multiplayer does have player-hosted servers, so when I'm hosting a lobby, I have 0 ping, and when people join, they have ping. Desync, much like with Payday 2, is a problem. Things are slightly out of time with lag and connections like that, so bear in mind sometimes if your internet is strong, during another game, it may be a little bit challenging at times. Just something to note. And on top of that, the only other things I've noticed is that I've had a few bugs recently in Stealth where guards have noticed things through doors or through walls from other sides of the map that aren't in their line of sight. They just slowly take up detection, or same for civilians, and I have to then respond and deal with them, even though I shouldn't have to. Might just be a bug that gets patched in a future update. And the only thing I'd say is that I'd love, on top of that, for body bags to be pushed outwards, much like with loot bags. So when you throw them, they actually go outwards rather than dropping them straight down. It'd make handling body bags a lot easier, even though in this game, you don't need them much, which I really like. Huge fan of that. But there you go. That is Crime Boss Rockay City, roughly 14 months after launch. I genuinely really recommend this game. It's currently on sale in the Epic Games Store, but even honestly at full price, I would put my recommendation behind it. After Update 8, this game has got so much more to it, and if you're like me and you've been sat waiting for Payday 3 to do something with any kind of momentum for the last few months, this is a game that's worth your time and worth putting some effort into while you're waiting, or even beyond that if you like it so much that you prefer it to Payday. I'm someone who will always recommend a good game if I play it, and I do think this is a very good game. So that is my thoughts on Crime Boss Rockay City in 2024. I hope you've all enjoyed this video. If you have any questions on anything, please feel free to drop them in the comment section below. If you have any thoughts on Crime Boss, are you going to be checking it out because this video? Have you dropped off with it a while ago but are going to pick it back up? Have you picked it back up since I've made this video or before it? Let me know all your thoughts on everything around this game down in the comment section below. I think it's a really interesting one to talk about, and I'm excited to get your thoughts on it. Thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and I will see you all on Friday for the next Payday 3 dev blog to see what Starbreeze are cooking up while we're playing what in-game studios have been cooking up over the last few months. So thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you all soon. Look after yourselves, stay safe, see you in the next one.